human characteristics of life. Now, there's many things that go into making us human, and many things that go into making each person individual. But some of the shared traits across all the human aspect starts with organization. Our bodies are organized, as we found out last video, with the different levels of organization, right from the chemical level all the way up to the organismal level. This organization, by organ system, by organ, by cell, helps us to differentiate one characteristic. Cellular composition. Now, cellular composition. Our bodies are made up of cells. We already said that. Cells make up tissues, tissues make up organs, organ systems, organism. But this cellular composition is to be something that's unique to the living characteristics as well. Metabolism. Now, in the case of metabolism, these are going to be chemical reactions. You can see we have catabolism right here. Catabolism is when we take in food, for example, and we break it down. By taking it in and breaking it down, we're releasing energy our body can use. Then if we go next one, anabolism, that's building up our different tissues. By building up molecules, we're using energy to make things like muscles and organs and different tissues. So it's kind of important to have these different chemical reactions that are helping make sure that our bodies are functioning properly. Responsiveness. If something comes flying at you, you respond. You catch it, you duck. You do something to respond to that stimulus. If something hurts you, respond to the pain. If you're feeling warm or cold, you respond to the temperature. It's this responsiveness that is another characteristic of life for us. Development. Well, you're going to develop throughout your life, from childhood through adulthood. Think of an infant, a child. The bones are growing, the muscles are growing, the brain and nervous system is growing. Their cognitive abilities are increasing. Their muscle control is increasing. All this is development that's changing throughout the life. Reproduction. Now there's two different reproductions listed here. There is cell-based reproduction, and then there's organismal reproduction. Cell-based reproduction is things like mitosis, that one cell becomes two cells, exact copies. So the cells keep growing and developing in that way. The organismal is when two individuals will create a baby at that point. So there's different levels or different types of the human characteristic for reproduction here. It's organismal level, continuing the species, as well as cell level, making sure your body is functioning by creating new cells to make new tissues. Evolution. The idea of change over time from generation to generation. Now, in the case of human evolution, you can look back 100, 200 years. The average height at that time. Well, in those 100 to 200 year span, the average height has increased throughout the entire human population. So there are some changes over time occurring, hence evolution. Movement. Now, movement is one of the characteristics of life. You can see here we have propulsion, peristalsis, as well as locomotion. Locomotion being the body moving physically. You're moving your arms, moving your legs. But propulsion, or peristalsis, or segmentation for that matter, is internal movement. When you swallow some food, it has to move down your esophagus, into your stomach, through your intestines. That movement, depending on where you're located in there, is peristalsis or segmentation. So you have different types of movement occurring at this point as well. Growth. You're changing over time. You're physically getting bigger from childhood through adulthood. So growth is a characteristic. Homeostasis. Now, all these body systems, we talked about 11 different body systems working together. Homeostasis helps with all of them working in unison. They're all talking, communicating, making sure you're maintaining proper levels for different ions and nutrients. Your body is constantly balancing and trying to maintain homeostasis across all your systems. So that is looking at homeostasis. And with homeostasis, a lot of times we're getting constant feedback occurring. Negative feedback is one type of method that helps with maintaining homeostasis. In the case of negative feedback, a lot of times it's when something gets out of adjustment, a little bit too much of this ion or a little too little of this ion. The way it works is you receive a stimulus. That stimulus is going to give you an input through a sensor. Now, that sensor is going to send the information along what's called an afferent system. Now, afferent is going to allow you to go down to the next system, which is your control. Control, a lot of times, is going to be the brain, the spinal cord, but it could be an organ as well. That is not the brain or spinal cord. Just depends on what's the input. This input could be warm or cold temperatures. It could be pain. It could be vision. There's so many different inputs, it doesn't matter. There is some input coming in, going down an afferent pathway to a control. From the control, you head to the effector. But to get to that effector, you have to go through an efferent pathway. Now, efferent is going to allow the information to travel out to that effector. The effector could be a muscle. It could be a gland. The effector is whatever is going to make the change occur. That's the response. So we have the stimulus, wherever that information was, that then hits the receptor, which is your sensor. It sends it via the afferent pathway into the control center. The control then decides what to do, sends it through the efferent pathway out to the effector. The effector will make the change. That change is the response. So you're looking at this kind of generic idea of how this is working here. All right, let's get rid of this. So give an example of this. Let's go to the next one. Come on, there you go. Body temperature. Body temperature for an individual human is typically about 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. You need to stay within a couple degrees of that for normal functionality, for homeostasis to work. So your skin cells, nerve cells, there's inputs constantly coming from all of your body. Those different nerve cells in the skin are sending feedback to your brain. There's continuous feedback. It's telling you if your skin is warm or cold. Now, if you're cold, what do? You put something on to warm up or move to a warmer location. If you get really cold, you shiver. Well, if you're warm though, what do? You try to take a layer off of clothing if you can. You try to move to a cooler environment, get in the shade. So the idea is your skin has these nerve receptors that are picking up this information. That information is going to go through an afferent pathway into the regulatory center of the brain. Once you get in the brain's going to decide, hey, what do? How do we compensate for this temperature change? Once it decides, it then sends out information. In this case, you're now too warm. It sends out through the efferent pathway to an effector. In this case, the effector are the sweat glands. You're going to start sweating. As you sweat, the water in your skin is going to evaporate. That's evaporative cooling. But at the same time, your blood vessels there in your skin are opening up or dilating. By opening the blood vessels, it allows more heat to reach the skin. That heat goes into the sweat, and you evaporate that heat off. So you're having both these dilation of blood vessels in the skin, bringing more blood, more heat. You have the sweat glands producing sweat onto the skin surface, and then it evaporates. That is the effector. That's what's making the change to try and cool your body down. Ultimately, you've lost heat. your body's cooling down. Now, this will keep going as a negative feedback until your body gets down to the proper temperature. Even after you're sweating and this is occurring, if your skin cells with those nerve cells there still say, hey, it's too warm, you keep going. This only stops, that big red arrow going up only stops once your body says, hey, this is the right temperature. We're now maintaining homeostasis. We don't have to get back. We're where we want to be. So negative feedback is all about fixing a problem. This example, it was too warm. Could easily have been an example of saying too cold and go through the same process. You have to have a stimulus, receptor, skin cells and nerves here, afferent pathway going to the control center, brain, control center making a choice, sending that signal out the efferent pathway to an effector, this case, sweat glands, blood vessels dilating, to make the change, sweating, try to cool down. But even in that whole process, whether your body's using it or even just your mind's doing it, you're kind of using this scientific method to think about it. So think about it. Make an observation. You, that last example, you're hot. So you observe that you're warm. Sun's out, the temperature's warm. You know it's warm. You then make a hypothesis. It's hot outside, say. Throughout the day, the temperature's going to go up because it's only 8 in the morning right now. It'll get warmer. Well, if it's going to get warmer, I better make sure I dress appropriately so I'm not wearing a winter jacket when it's 90 degrees out. So to test that hypothesis, what do? Well, your body, in this case we saw already, is going to be sweating, trying to cool it down, see if it works. In your case, you can walk outside. See if your clothing choice matched what you thought the weather's going to be and what you're seeing from what you're looking outside. You can then have the experiment, was going outside. In case your body, the sweating, did it work? Hey, it worked. If it doesn't work, you try again. If it does work, conclusion is, hey, this worked out perfectly fine. These clothes work, I feel comfortable. In the case of your body just now, sweating cooled the body temperature down. It worked great. Feedback, we're in homeostasis. So this scientific method can be very simple. Just you figure out what clothing to wear for a day. Or can be very complex in some scientific experiments. Either way, you have the same basic idea of what the scientific method is. But while we have dealt with the negative feedbacks, there is also something called positive feedbacks. In the case of a positive feedback, you're having a self-amplifying cycle. That means once it starts, it only gets stronger and stronger and stronger. The example you see here is going to be labor and childbirth. As the head of that baby infant that's being born is pushing on the cervix, the cervix then will transmit nervous impulses back into the body. The brain stimulates that and says, hey, the head is pushing the cervix. Let's produce oxytocin. Once oxytocin is produced, it tells the cervix to contract further. Well, by contracting further, then now the baby's head pushes more on the cervix, which then the cycle goes back and says, hey, the baby's head's pushing the cervix. More oxytocin, the brain says, produce. You produce more oxytocin, goes back to the cervix contracts more. This cycle keeps going over and over, hence called a positive feedback. As long as that baby's head is pushing on the cervix, the brain will keep getting signals saying produce oxytocin. More oxytocin means more contractions. It's a self-amplifying cycle. Once that baby's born, the head's not pushing the cervix. The cycle is going to stop at that point. So a case of a positive feedback is not meant to maintain homeostasis. It's meant to be continuing the process to reach an end goal for whatever is occurring. In this case, childbirth. Another example is blood clotting. When your platelets find a break in the blood vessel, you have a cut. That's going to be another self-amplifying cycle. More platelets be recruited and more platelets. Every time platelets come in to help clot, they recruit more. It's a self-amplifying cycle until you stop the loss of blood. Once you stop the bleeding, good to go, the cycle stops. So feedback mechanisms, both positive and negative, exist. Usually negative feedback is what's helping with homeostasis and all the rest of the parts we talked about. So plenty of different parts and pieces of how the body is helping to regulate as well as maintain homeostasis.